This is video 3 of topic 8 on water quality and lakes. This video focuses on lakes. There are many large lakes around the world. Some of them are of tectonic origin, while others are of glacial origin. You will have heard of many of these. There's the Caspian Sea, for example, the Aral Sea, Lake Victoria, Lake Baikal, Lake Tanganyika, and then of glacial origin we have the Great Lakes of North America, Ladoga, Van Ern, Great Slave Lake, and Great Bear Lake, among many others. Classification of the major lakes of the world depends on whether you rank them in terms of their surface area or in terms of their volume. And so there's some debate about whether Caspian Sea, for example, is a lake. It is endorheic, which means that it doesn't drain into the ocean. However, it is fairly salty. It's about a third the salt level of the ocean. And so typically it's not included. By area, Lake Superior is then the largest, and then the Aral Sea, and then many of the Great Lakes. So you can see Huron, Michigan, and then Ontario down here, for example. If you look at the volume, which is the more typical ranking scheme, Lake Baikal is by far the largest, followed by Tanganyika, then Superior, and so on. We'll talk about a number of these lakes in the next slides. First, we should define the term lake. A lake is any relatively large body of slowly moving or standing water that occupies an inland basin of appreciable size. Definitions that precisely distinguish lakes, ponds, swamps, and even rivers and other bodies of non-oceanic water are not well established. It may be said, however, that rivers and streams are relatively fast-moving. Marshes and swamps contain relatively large quantities of grasses, trees, or shrubs, and ponds are relatively small in comparison with lakes. Geologically defined, in other words over the long term, lakes are temporary bodies of water. This is the largest lake in the world by volume. Lake Baikal in Russia has a lake area of 31,500 square kilometers and quite a large mean depth of 744 meters. The lake volume is 23,615 cubic kilometers of water, and the residence time is 380 years. Now, why are lakes like this important? Well, they contain, if you recall, about 67% of the non-glacial and non-groundwater fresh water on the planet, and so they contain a very large amount of the water that we can actually use. And further, if they have a very large residence time like this one of 380 years, any pollutants we introduce into them have a very long lifespan in that body of water. When I talk about residence time, what I mean is that we divide the lake volume by the annual inflow rate, and so it gives you an idea of the average amount of time your average droplet of water will spend in this lake basin. Lake Baikal is also important because it contains about 20% of the world's unfrozen surface freshwater. Lake Tanganyika, which is a lake between Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Zambia, has also a very large lake area, about 33,000 square kilometers, a very large mean depth also of 570 meters. Like Lake Baikal, this is also a rift lake. The lake volume is almost 19,000 cubic kilometers, and it has an incredibly long residence time of 5,500 years. In terms of history, the pyramids are about 4,500 years. And so the mean residence time of any droplet of water here is older than the pyramids by about 1,000 years. And Lake Tanganyika contains about 18% of the world's unfrozen surface freshwater. Lake Superior in Canada and the United States is larger than the previous two in terms of its surface area, but its mean depth is significantly less. Its lake volume is therefore less as well, and so it's about 12,200 cubic kilometers with a lengthy residence time, but less than the previous two of about 190 years. And this is the largest freshwater lake in the world, again, in terms of surface area. Lake Victoria is substantially smaller than the previous lakes. It has a very large surface area, but a very small mean depth. and so its lake volume is about 22% of Lake Superior. The residence time here is also much lower, about 23 years. Great Bear Lake in the Northwest Territories is smaller. Again, it's about 31,000 square kilometers with a mean depth of about 72 meters, and the lake volume is somewhat smaller than Lake Victoria. Its residence time is about 124 years. The Aral Sea is a very interesting water management example. You can see here, this is the Caspian Sea. This is the Aral Sea here, and so this is in Central Asia. You can see that most of its water comes from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, and then it flows through the Sir Darya and the Amu Darya rivers to the Aral Sea, which is endorheic, so no outlets. And what you'll notice is most of the water begins in these nations, and there's a huge amount of use in these nations. That use dates back to the time of the USSR. So the Aral Sea, which was once one of the world's largest bodies of landlocked water, has been drying up since the 1960s. And this is because of Soviet-era irrigation projects, especially the growth of cotton. The irrigation canals that they put in were not well lined, and so a lot of the water that was used for irrigation actually seeped through the canal beds before it was ever applied to any of the irrigated fields. And so for economic reasons, that water was important, but for environmental reasons, it was quite a big problem. So the lake area in 1960 was about 68,000 square kilometers, and by 2004, it had decreased by a factor of about 4 down to 17,000 square kilometers. You can see here there are camels grazing where once there were fishing fleets. All right, here are some images of what the lake looked like in 1989 versus 2008. There's still water in the northern section. There is actually a dam here. Here you can see 1957 lake levels, 1977, 82, 84, 93, and then by November 2000, the lake had basically split into two lobes here and the northern reach. Here are different scenarios for the future. So this is where water continues to be used. This is the total available runoff here at the top of the curve, and this is the abstraction or use of water over time. So if there's continuing growth, then the lake may completely dry out, whereas if we can reduce the demand somewhat, then the amount of water that's available for refilling the basin increases, of course. There's a number of really interesting documentaries on the Aral Sea available on YouTube, so you may want to check this one, for example, from BBC News, and this one from France 24, talking about the effect of the dam up here in the northern reach.
Инженер болып жұмыс істеймін. Арал теңізінде құйып тұрған екі өзеннің суын ирригацияға есепсіз пайдалану салдарынан 1989 жылда Арал теңізі екіге бөлінді.